Full Court Fits is The Ringer's new weekly NBA video series hosted by Big Waz, aka Wozni Lambre. Each week, we take you around the world of NBA fashion and share can't-miss style choices from your favorite players and keep you up to date on the latest news and releases in sneaker culture. Waz also talks to experts like Damian Lillard's personal stylists to give you behind-the-scenes looks at how the NBA's biggest stars choose their outfits. New episodes drop every Friday, so make sure you're subscribed to The Ringer's YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Ringer so you never miss an episode.
This episode is brought to you by Nissan. The all-new 2022 Nissan Pathfinder's intelligent 4x4 will get you back outdoors to camping, kayaking, or mountain biking. When they say rugged, they mean it. Return to rugged in the all-new 2022 Nissan Pathfinder. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Available intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions. This episode of the Bill Simmons Podcast is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter knows that the general experience of looking for a job is pretty sucky. That's why they figured out a way to make it unsucky. When you sign up at ZipRecruiter.com, you can create a free profile and then you get matched to great jobs plus a lot more. ZipRecruiter will proactively pitch your profile to employers whose jobs match your experience. Plus, if you like the job, you can apply to it and many others with just one click. It's that easy. Sign up for free on ZipRecruiter.com today and experience the better way to find a job. Once again, ZipRecruiter.com right now to sign up absolutely free and put ZipRecruiter to work for you. We're also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook as well as The Ringer and TheRinger.com. Big podcast coming up. Mike Francesa. We are talking little Yankees, Red Sox at the top. I had to do it. I didn't want to do it, but he was just beaming with joy, so we had to. But really, I wanted him to talk about NFL futures, Giants and the Jets, Belichick. So he gave us his favorite bet. So that's our first guest. And then Jason Goff, a name you'll be hearing in Ringer circles a little bit more as we head into football season. But I had to ask him, what's going on with Justin Fields and the Bears fans? Is this an all-time love affair, a budding love affair? Where are we? Do we believe in Justin Fields? And then finally, Jim Miller, who wrote the definitive book about ESPN Once Upon a Time. He's been on this podcast many times before, but so much ESPN drama. I had to bring him on to figure out what the F is going on with that place. So yeah, heading into the weekend, this is a really, really good podcast. It's all next. First, our friends from Pearl Jam. All right, not a lot could bring Mike Francesa to this podcast. I really have to talk him in. There's got to be something in it for him. There's two things that he loves: NFL futures and the Yankees turning things around. When I was texting my Yankee friends being like, we're going to try to go 19-0 against you this year. We could try to sweep the series. This is going to be great. You trade for Rizzo, the rivalry flips. And now we're taping this at 3 on Thursday afternoon Pacific time. The rivalry flips. You love this Yankee team. And I hate the joy in your face. I really do. I can't stand it.
I hated this Yankee team. Hated it. I still don't love a lot of these players. Rizzo's already my favorite Yankee, other than Gotti, who's old. But I love Rizzo is a born Yankee. Absolutely. And lately he hasn't even hit that much. But just in the Red Sox series, his glove versus Dahlbeck's stone glove was the difference in one game. I mean, and this Yankees team's transformation has been one of the most startling in season in baseball history. They went from being a awful to watch, slow, misguided, just unathletic, ugly team that could do nothing right to a team now that has transformed everything. Their attitude, their approach at the plate. They now take more pitches than anybody. They hit and run. They steal bases. They catch the ball.
This is disgusting. I'm going to throw up.
Everything right. They do everything right. And it was so bad to so good. It is startling. But let me throw some cold water, because of the fact that if they don't get Chapman straightened out, and I don't know that they can, and right now he's not close, they will go out early in the playoffs because they have nobody, and underline nobody, to close the games. Nobody can do it. I don't think Loizaga can do it. All right, Wandy's a pipe dream. Britton's gone. Green can't pitch the ninth inning. They right now have nobody to close the games.
What's Rivera doing? Can they get him ready in time for October or no?
That's their best bet. I mean, that is really their best bet. I would roll the dice, believe it or not. They go out there and say, oh, let's look at Chapman tonight and hope and dream, okay? I mean, that they won that game the other night when they went to Wandy with the bases loaded after Chapman had imploded was unbelievable, but that's how it's been during the streak. They've won 7 or 8 games they had no right winning. The bottom line is, though, they can't count on Chapman. He's been awful. And I think Loizaga is probably the best bet, but I think the Yankees are going into the postseason, and they're going into the postseason. I don't think they'll win the division. I think they'll win the wild card easy. But I think they're going in without anybody they can count on in the 9th inning.
I think Chapman is done personally, or there's something wrong with him. I don't know what's going on with him, but that Atlanta game the other night, which was done, and then Chapman, the sweat's pouring out of him. Like, it honestly looks like he looks like Ray Liotta in the last 20 minutes of Goodfellas. Like, he looks like he's honestly having a meltdown. And finally, Boone has to just come. He's like, we're just not going to win the game if this guy, I had to do it. They had to do this against the Red Sox, too. It's like, wow, you can't even get a 3-run save. We got to come get you. So
and
it's
the
rough.
Red Sox, the transformation, it's almost like whatever the Yankees had infecting them, it infected the Red Sox all of a sudden.
It did.
They can't catch the ball. They hit every fastball that was thrown anywhere near them the first 3 months of the season. Now they can't get a hit with men in scoring position. They look like whatever was just the Yankees had, that they caught it, and the Yankees just repelled it. It's like they changed places.
Yeah, it's like a horror movie where the evil being jumps bodies. Yeah, the games the Yankees were winning, that was what the Red Sox was doing for 4 months, including against the Yankees a couple times. These ridiculous wins where you're just like, what just happened? But our bullpen fell apart. I mean, 2 things. We didn't do anything at trade deadline, and the bullpen died. Whitlock, Barnes, all these guys just ran out of steam.
Yeah, your bullpen is not good, and it was a wish and a dream anyway. And this idea, they're going to get Sale at the break. Oh yeah, sure, that's going to be great. I mean, that's going to be wonderful. Listen, they are a good team. They don't have great pitching. They're not a championship team. The Yankees could be if they could figure out the 9th inning. I don't think they can. I don't think it's something they really have within their possibility. They figured out everything else, and I'm telling you, the day Rizzo put the uniform on, everything changed. Everything changed.
And with the rivalry, it changed because as a Red Sox fan, we were all mad they didn't do anything. But I really think the front office looked at it and were like, we're smoke and mirrors. We're not giving up prospects. Rizzo's not going to save what's about to happen to this team. And Rizzo ends up going to the Yankees for, they get the salaries paid for. They did give up a couple like lower level prospects. The Red Sox didn't want to give up anything. They're like, we're good. But you'd think that he's probably been worth a 5-game swing because we have nobody who can play first base.
Just the attitude he brought, and he is a Yankee. The Yankees didn't know how to play, and they were stubborn about it. They're like, we don't need lefties. What do you mean you don't need lefties? All of a sudden, now the balance in the lineup has meant everything. You know, we can win with the home run. No, you can't. Now they run. Now, Wade's been good, and he's been hitting. They put the kid in at shortstop who's like, a made-for-TV movie, and the kid's playing like Louis Aparicio, okay? And what they had was a bunch of right-handed sluggers who couldn't get out of their own way, who were the worst base-running team in history. And now they do everything right. They steal bases, they hit and run, they catch everything. It's a complete transformation, the likes of which I cannot remember in season in my life.
It reminds me of the 2018 Red Sox team in the sense that you're right. The way the American League is, who the hell knows? Like the Yankees, they're playing well. They obviously have an expensive roster with some stars. They're getting lucky with a couple of the frisky guys. But the 2018 Red Sox had this Craig Kimbrell piece where it was just hanging over us that whole year. We just didn't know if we could get through October with him as the closer. And as it turns out, we made it by like the skin of our balls with him.
Yep.
And then he came back, and now he's an asset again. But it just didn't seem like he could be the closer on a World Series team. And I don't think Chapman can either.
I don't think he can. First of all, I've never been a big Chapman guy. I don't like a lot of these Yankees. I don't like a lot of them. I don't like the way they play. I never want to stand anywhere near the team. Voit now is mad about Rizzo. You know what? It's actually made him hit better. So you know what? As long as he hits mad, okay. They have got really it's been done a little bit with mirrors because they've gotten a lot of guys play way over their head the last couple of weeks, but it's working. Everything that didn't work, it's almost like every bad bounce, now it's a good bounce. And I know it's going to level off and they're going to have a slump again. Actually, that's baseball. The bottom line, though, is it's going to level off. They're going to make the playoffs. This series with the A's is going to be very interesting because they can put them away. And the A's are really cascading quickly. This is a big series starting tonight. But without the ability to close the game, and they don't have that ability. Green sees the ninth inning, he runs the other way. I mean, he's great in any other inning, but put him in the ninth inning, it's over. Britton's gone. You can't count anybody else. And frankly, I don't trust Chapman, even when he's good, no less now, where he is just impossible to believe in even a little bit. So I think they have really a big Achilles heel, and I think that will keep them from going a long way in the postseason.
Do you want to take 30 seconds to make fun of the Mets?
Let me say this. The Mets, I was the only guy in town that I saw who made any mention of how bad the Lindor contract was. My point was, nobody ever comes here, ever. Some of the greatest players in history have come here and never played well in their first year here. Never played well here when they had to justify a contract. He comes in, you knew this, you could predict it, okay? You could have got $100 million off the top if you just did nothing. He wasn't going anywhere. The bottom line is, he not only does that, he brings Baez in the boot in the middle of the season. So now you got two of them, okay? It is such a disaster. If I am the owner, and we haven't really seen from the owner yet because he's still learning. He's sitting back, he's real rich, and he's real smart. And he's got a little Main Street. So the bottom line is, I think what he does now, clean house, gives Theo the 2 points he wants, brings him in, and lets him rebuild and try to win his championship with Theo. He didn't want to give Theo ownership. He didn't want to give him 1 point. Theo wants a couple of points.
Is that true?
Yeah, he wants the Caston deal. Yeah, Theo wants points. I mean, everyone knows that.
No, it's the Pat Riley deal. Pat Riley invented that deal.
Yeah, well, really, Theo is the answer because I think he believes if I go with Theo, it's the proven commodity. I'm going to overpay. I'm going to lose control a little bit, which he should forget commenting about everything publicly anyway, which he will as he becomes a more veteran owner. But the bottom line is, I think that's the way to go. Now, I'm not saying I know because I don't know the owner. So I'm not saying I know he will go Theo. I think that's the way he should go. Get Theo. Let Theo bring in his band of merry men. He'll overpay all of them. We know how Theo's going to be now. He's going to, basically comment when he wants. He's going to be aloof. He's going to make a lot of money, but he'll win. And over a period of time, he will get his championship. And what this guy wants to sit there and just drown himself in the adulation of the fans with his family around him one time and win a championship. That's what he wants. That's the way he can get that if he goes with Theo.
Well, that's like those Milwaukee Bucks owners recently, Lazary and Edens. These guys, they buy the Bucks, and then when it actually works out and you win, you feel like you're a superhero.
Right. They won, and let's be honest, they all won because the Lakers were hurt. If the Lakers weren't hurt, or if the Suns hadn't completely lost their way and realized where they were. The coach realized where he was. 3 or 4 of the young players realized where they were, and it was a disaster after that. I mean, they got roughed up physically the rest of the series, as we all know. But that team isn't winning any more championships. We all know that, okay? But they got their championship, and now they can bask in that. The owners there, Mark Lazary and the guys, they can all bask in the fact that they got their championship. They got their rings. They can show everybody at the cocktail parties now.
Wow, I just think you put a giant chip on Giannis's shoulder. Giannis is sitting here thinking, I've moved into the Hakeem, Shaq, Moses stratosphere. I've got multiple titles. And here's Francesa being like, no, you only won because these other teams were hurt. Enjoy your one ring. You're never getting another one.
Let's be honest, okay? All he did was beat up some guys, put his shoulder down, go to the basket, finally make some free throws. Here's what I'll say about him, though. He's got some real ugly parts of this game. But let's be fair about one thing, and I want to be fair. He plays so hard every minute on the court. I respect that. That's one thing LeBron always did. He played his rear end off every minute on the court. This kid played so hard and played both ends of the floor so hard. I give him great credit for that. But let's be honest. We weren't watching picturesque all-time playoff basketball here when he was just putting his shoulder down, knocking guys down on his way to the rim, either go into the line and make it 10 or 20, and then finally having some balls drop in the end of the series. And then Chris Paul remembered, wait, I'm not supposed to ever win a championship, so let me go back to being Chris Paul and get bullied by guys who, a couple of years ago couldn't have played with me. And that's what happened. Chris Paul got pushed all over the court. The center got pushed all over the building, and it was over from there. I mean, and they didn't have enough. They didn't have enough to get past that. And let's be honest, they had one shot to win, and they let it get away.
I think you're shortchanging Giannis a little bit. Like as a two-way incredible athlete, like the stuff that he was able to do defensively, the ways that he can help his team. That's not just about scoring and like he had that iconic block and the alley-oop. And I just thought his athleticism and how hard he played, which you just mentioned, like the combo of those two things, it's really rare territory. It's like basically LeBron and Shaq in 2000 in the last 20 years.
His skill level, though, needs a little work. I mean,
he's 26. Really come on, Mike.
I mean, he just bulldozed. He just basically put his shoulder down and went to the basket, which I give him credit for. He finally figured out that no one could stop me. But I think if they're playing against the Lakers, if they're playing against
the Nets.
I have some problems with some of the Nets, so I don't want to talk about them today because we'll get to them sometime next year. But I'll tell you, if the Lakers didn't get hurt, they were winning that championship. Let's be honest. They were winning that championship. And if not, the Nets were going to win it. The Nets and Lakers were on a different level than these teams. And Phoenix should have had enough. But like I said, the clock struck midnight and they realized where they were and they weren't ready.
It was a very weird season. We have them sometimes. 2015 was weird. That first Warriors title where it was like, oh, wait, they're actually going to win the title. This is weird.
Yes.
Sometimes you have this. All right, we're going to take a break. And then when we come back, it's time. I don't have the NFL music that you used to play back in the day, but we're going to do some future bets. But we're taking a break. Come back. One of the many reasons I love FanDuel Sportsbook, you can combine prop bets with other bets from the same game to score an even bigger payout. It's called the Same Game Parlay on FanDuel Sportsbook. It's also a way to play some future bets on the upcoming season. You can mix them up, team two of them up. For instance, did you know the New England Patriots right now on FanDuel plus 125 to make the playoffs? You could team that up with, say, the Los Angeles Rams, who upgraded big-time quarterback Matt Stafford, minus 178. Look at that. Now I'm getting almost 2-1 if I combine those two. Same game parlay. One of the many reasons I bet with FanDuel. Easy to register, easy to deposit, easy to find your bet, easy to place your bet fast. And there's no feeling quite like nailing a same game parlay bet. Can't wait to have those in football. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today. Create a same game parlay. Use promo code BS at sign up. New users get the first bet risk-free up to $1,000. FanDuel will refund you up to $1,000 back in site credit if you don't win. That is promo code BS, so they know I sent you. Must be 21 plus and present in Colorado, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, or West Virginia. First online real money wager only. Site credit non-withdrawable, expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 Colorado. 800-BETS-OFF Iowa, 800-9-WITH in Indiana, 800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan, 800-GAMBLER in Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Virginia. Tennessee Red Line is 800-889-9789 or visit 1800gambler.net in West Virginia. All right, NFL futures. I sent you a bunch of odds from FanDuel.
Yeah.
I have been talking about this on my pod. I have some teams I like. We'll just start here. Your favorite bet. Don't say the Giants. You're not allowed to talk about the Giants yet. Your favorite bet, your favorite future. Is it an over-under to make the playoffs? Whatever. What do you like the most?
Saints over 9. I think the number is really low. I think the Saints have really screwed up the last couple of years. And the reason why is Sean didn't know how to get rid of Drew Brees when he needed to get rid of Drew Brees. Drew Brees was damaged goods, couldn't play at all. And it really hurt them. And I understand what he meant to the city, to the franchise, to everything. So it's a very difficult thing to do when you have that kind of player. But Sean was between a rock and a hard place, and it cost him. If he will just put Winston in there, coach him up where you take away some of the bad throws because he can make every good throw. and then use the other kid as the change of pace and use him on running downs and use him as like you use the secondary quarterback. They are a team that I think can easily win 11 to 12 games. They have a lot of talent on that team, a real lot of talent. And it's talent that has been misspent the last couple of years. I think the Saints will have a big year.
All right, their over-under is 9.
9. I don't think that's any problem. I actually think it's a gift.
So 10-7, they win. They're plus 330 for the division. They're minus 110 to make the playoffs. You know, when you were talking about Breeze last year, it reminded me of the last 8 years of Derek Jeter's career. Kind of the same thing, just holding on, the legacy. You feel bad. You don't want to kick him to the curb. It's really like Jeter from 06 on, basically. 07?
Yeah, but you know what? You don't get exposed. You don't get exposed. Even when you slow down in baseball, you don't get exposed like you do at quarterback. Because here's a guy who could not make a legitimate throw.
Right.
That they needed on second or third down. And if he had made 1 or 2, they could have easily won a championship. Matter of fact, let me say this. Everyone talks about Tom, okay? And what Tom has done keeping himself in shape and what he did in Tampa and everything and what he did when he had to make the certain play. But Tom didn't play really well in the postseason. As a matter of fact, if that ball isn't stripped when the Saints are up in the third quarter and the tight end's running free and the safety on Tampa doesn't strip the ball clean, the Saints are going to win that game and play in the Super Bowl. That was the biggest play in the postseason, without any question. And they had, Tom threw 3 picks in the second half of the title game. You don't win those games usually when you throw 3 picks in the second half of that game. He got bailed out by his defense when it happened. When he needed to make a play, he made it. And things broke really right, but you can never take anything away from him because he's done it so many times. But I thought the Saints had the best talent last year, and I thought Breeze really held them back. And I know it was a very hard thing for Sean to deal with. I'll tell you something else that I noticed, Bill. Belichick's on Mount Rushmore. We all know that, okay? There are a couple other really good coaches in the league. Andy Reid, as everyone should have realized a long time ago. I've been telling people for 10 years. Now they all know Andy's a really good coach, although we had a terrible championship game last year. Terrible Super Bowl. And we can talk about that if you want. But the coaching in the league right now at the head coaching position in the NFL is the weakest I've ever seen in my life. There are so many bad coaches. It's unbelievable. There used to be a lot of good coaches, 10, 12, 14 good coaches. Man, there are so many bad coaches in this league now. It's unbelievable. Or unproven coaches. It's amazing how many unproven coaches there are in the NFL now.
Well, so if you have somebody like Peyton or Belichick, it's an even bigger advantage. It does seem like there's more turnover with coaching than there's ever been before, and these coaching trees that never work. Yeah, the owners, they get impatient.
They used to wait a cycle. They used to wait 3 or 4 years. Now it cycles 1 or 2 years tops. And they'll go 1 year with a guy now if they don't like him. They'll go 1 year. If he can't handle the media, they'll go 1 year with a guy. Or if he does something really stupid, they'll go 1 year with a guy now. So you'll get those kind of changes. But when you look at the coaching, the quality, the real bona fide Tom Coughlin's of the world, they're not in this league right now. You got your stars. I mean, you got Belichick, you got Andy, they're Hall of Famers. You got Sean Payton, who's a really solid coach. There's some good coaches in the league. Mike Zimmer's a good coach. Not a great coach, he's a good coach. Tomlin's a good, solid coach. There are a lot of stars, and there's a lot of weak guys. And then there's the Urban Meyer situation. Here is a college god. Here is a man who was not a good college coach. He was one of the greatest college coaches in history. He changed everything anytime he put his hand on it. He went 187-32 with 3 titles. The man has been a coaching god, and now it's going to be fascinating to watch. But if he tries to do it with a first-year quarterback, no matter how talented he is, and Lawrence is going to be a great quarterback. He's going to be the bottom line for Lawrence is he's a 10-year starter. That's the worst that could happen. The best is he becomes a Peyton Manning, and I think he will be that kind of quarterback over time. But it doesn't happen in the first year. Aikman won no games. Peyton went 3-13. It's very hard to win when you try to break in a guy who's going to be your franchise quarterback, because that means he's staying no matter what all year, unless he gets hurt. And it's hard to win games that way. And that's going to be interesting to watch. Urban is trying to win games and bring the quarterback along at the same time. It's a very hard thing to do.
I had them as a super duper duper, only because of the odds, sleeper in the AFC South, because I think that division's going to suck. And then I actually watched them in the preseason, and they literally can't block. The Urban Meyer thing, new coach, all that stuff. The rookie running back gets hurt.
Yeah, they lose Etienne. And listen, when you have this kind of pressure on you as a new quarterback, if you look historically, all of them, what you're talking about, Elway, Manning, Aikman, Terry Bradshaw, who wanted to quit in Pittsburgh. He got benched 3 different times. I mean, it took him years. These guys who are all-time greats, they don't come out and do it. Dan Marino's the only one who came in and was just brilliant from Jump Street. There are very few of those. It's very hard to do. I think it would be hard for them to win more than 5 or 6 games. Very hard if you're going to play them all year.
And they're over under 6.5. Back to the Saints for a second. I was off them. I actually thought if there was going to be a team other than Tampa, I thought Atlanta was interesting just because they had some bad luck last year. They got Pitts coming in. I think the Julio
Pitts is going to be great.
Pitts is going to be great. Julio was playing 8-9 games a year. New coach, Arthur Smith. So I was like, oh, Atlanta. 2 things with New Orleans. You mentioned last year they really were maybe like 2 or 3 breaks away from making the Super Bowl. A lot of those guys are back. I was scared by the Michael Thomas thing. Just the fact that he waited so long to get the surgery. That just seemed like a soap opera. But now they have this kid, Marquez Callaway, who's just seems like he's the next Michael Thomas.
Hey, so there's always another wide receiver coming. There's always
especially in the Saints,
receiver.
They always have another one come up. But then you look at their schedule. They play the AFC East, so they get the Jets. And then they play the NFC East, which is going to be the worst division out of the 8. So you have that, plus you have, they get the Panthers, Falcons. They get to play, they have one tough stretch, week 7 to 10, at Seattle Monday night, Bucks, Falcons, at Tennessee. And if they get through that with like 2-2 or something, you're right. They should be able to go 10-7. I like
Bill,
that one,
here's
Mike.
the thing about them, and you know this because you know this stuff. They can line up and play with anybody, any day, anywhere, anytime. There's nobody they can't beat. There's nobody they can't line up and beat 27-17 on a Sunday anywhere in the league. They have that kind of talent. They have that kind of talent on their offensive line, defensive line, skill positions, quarterback. Now, Winston, here's what he has to do. He has got to get 10 interceptions out of his game. If he does that, he's going to have a big year. He is a great deep thrower, but the problem is he throws a lot of bad balls. Winston thinks he can make every play. He thinks there's no play he can't make. You've got to teach him you can't make this throw. If he can just take 1 or 2 throws out of the game plan, he can be really good because he's a great deep ball thrower.
I'm pro Winston. The dude threw for 5,200 yards. Granted, there were a bunch of terrible interceptions, but he can't. It's not like you're putting in Joe Flacco. You mentioned the Giants before we got on the Zoom,
right?
So NFCs quickly. Dallas is plus 130 to win the division. Giants are plus 400. Philly's plus 470, and Washington is plus 260. And they have the best over/under of 8.5. I like Washington the most. I can't get there with Daniel Jones. I've said this before, but I just feel like after 2 years, I've just kind of decided on you as a quarterback. I don't think you're showing me a lot after 2 years. You are who you are. You might be in a better situation, but that he's just too sloppy with the ball. I don't think that's ever changing, but you're more optimistic.
I'm not optimistic about the quarterback. I'm optimistic about the coach. The coach is good. The coach is the real deal, I believe, from what I've seen, and I don't know him very well. But they're going to be good on specials. They are really good on defense. I'm telling you, they are going to be better on defense than they've been in a long time. They spent a lot of money on defense. They brought in a lot of players. They spent a fortune on guys. Now, offensive line, question mark. Quarterback, big question mark. Even the health of the running back, big question mark. But it's 7 wins. There is not a top team in that division. Nobody's a top team. Every game in that division is going to be a hard-fought game. Every game. Them in Washington, hard-fought games. Them in the Cowboys, hard-fought games. Eagles, I think, are going to need a year. I think everyone feels that. Bottom line is, I think they can easily get to 500. I'm not saying they'll win the division. I take it 400. They're a good buy.
By the way, there is There is no 500 anymore. You just need them to get to 8 and 9.
I mean, get over 500. Yeah, I mean, can get over 500. It's 7. Obviously, there's no 500. We know that. But my point is, I think it's 7. I actually bet him at 6.5. It's 7 now. I think it's 7. They still go over. And I don't love the quarterback. I'm with you. He makes way too many mistakes. This is a real big year for him. Real big year for him. And I think he has got to take a big quantum leap forward or his career will be short there. They are going to stick with this coach. Take my word for it. They are going to. This coach was handpicked by Bill Belichick. They are going to stick with this coach. Gettleman, he should have been gone years ago. Eventually he'll go. Judge is going to be there for a while. They are committed to him. It's going to be his team. He will get to break in another quarterback with this team. He will not lose his job because of the quarterback. Other coaches have lost their job because of the quarterback there. He will not. They believe in Judge. And, I'm telling you, Bill Belichick had a lot to do with Judge getting the job there. A lot to do. He's very close with the Maras. He always has been. And the Maras listen to him. He had a lot to say about that. And they like Judge a lot. And everything I've seen from Judge is solid. He's got his hands on special teams. The Giants come to play hard every week. They don't take weeks off. Their game plan is good. And that's one of the things. There's 2 things I learned a long time ago in this league you got to do as a head coach. You got to give your team a plan they can win with and then get them to play hard. If you can do those 2 things, you're going to be successful over the long run. He does that. He does it every week. The quarterback is a big issue. I agree with you 100%. That's what holds him back where I can't say the Giants are going to win 10. But I think they'll easily get over 7. The other team that I
Wait, hold on the Giants quick.
Yeah.
I like that you said it was a big year for Daniel Jones. I'll say this. He might be on Get Up in 2 years as one of the co-hosts. It might be him and Mike Greenberg and Marcus Spears. So when you say it's a big year, the ESPN talent scouts are circling him already. This guy could be our next Dan Orlovsky.
This is a very big year. Yes.
Wait, can we do the Giants schedule quick? You and Dog used to do this way back when.
Yeah.
Give me win-loss for each one. Ready? Here we go. Week 1, home Denver.
Win.
Okay, we're 1-0. Week 2, at Washington, Thursday night, 4 days later.
Lose by a field goal.
Week 3, home Atlanta.
Win.
Week 4, at the Saints.
Lose.
All right, 2-2. Now we're heading into a gauntlet here. Week 5, at Dallas. You always win in Dallas and then lose at home.
I think they lose.
Okay, 2-3. Rams, week 6.
Lose.
Oh, God, we're 2-4. Uh-oh. Panthers home. This feels like a win, possibly.
Yep, I think they win that.
3-4. Week 8 at Chiefs Monday night.
No, they're dead. That's over.
All right, you're 3-5. Then you got the Raiders at home in week 9.
That's a win. Raiders, I think, are not going anywhere strong. I do not worry about the Raiders.
Me neither. All right, so you're 4-5. You're heading into a bye. You come out of the bye at Tampa Monday night.
No, they'll lose that game.
All right, 4-7. I feel like that could be the game where they actually Brady throws 4 picks. The Giants, 4-6. So Brady throws 4 picks. Everybody says Brady's washed up, and then he ends up winning every game the rest of the way.
I'm not even crazy enough to think they win there. Although I think Tampa's going to have a tougher year than people think.
I do as well. No Giants Brady stuff. All right, I thought I was baiting you on that one. Week 12, Eagles home.
That's a win. Eagles going to have the worst team in the division.
All right, so you're 5-6. At Miami, at Chargers, back-to-back.
I think they split them.
All right, you're 6-7. Home Dallas?
Win.
7-7. Now you need one of these next 3. At Eagles, at Chicago, home Washington.
I think they can win 2 of those 3.
So you're 9-8.
There you go. That's what I'm figuring.
Wow, confident. A lot of people do like that over.
And I didn't give them a crazy win. I don't think they're going to win in Kansas City. First of all, I think Kansas City's going to win the whole thing.
Okay, make the case. I want to hear that.
Listen, I think all Andy had to do, he got very unlucky last year. The thing with his son was a nightmare. When it happened was a nightmare. But more than that, the injuries to the offensive line when they happened were things he couldn't fix. But here's where I thought Andy really blew it. Andy went in that game and said, I don't care that we can't block them. We're going to run our offense, and Mahomes is going to make enough plays that we're going to break plays downfield and still win the game. You know what they found out? Mahomes, as good as he is, couldn't do that when he couldn't get any help at the line of scrimmage. And they never made an adjustment. They didn't make an adjustment in the second half. They didn't come out and do the things that we thought they would do to change things in the second half. And even Tampa challenged them to do some stuff and said, are you going to do this the whole game? And Mahomes was on the run. A couple of balls could have been caught. We know he made some amazing throws that could have been caught. They were dropped. The bottom line is he had a rough day. He thought that he could live with the passing game, even though he had no offensive line. He went out. He spent his whole offseason rebuilding the offensive line. That's all he did. He has skill everywhere else. I think they are impossible to stop. I think Buffalo was the second best team in the AFC. I think I was wrong about Josh Allen. I admit it. I never thought he'd be this good a player. I did not think he was ever going to be accurate, and accuracy is something a quarterback has to have. He has developed himself into a wonderful player. I admit I'm dead wrong about Allen. I didn't like him like this. A lot of people, I think, didn't, but won't admit it now. Maybe they will. But I admit that I was wrong about him. That team is really good. I don't think enough to win in Kansas City. I think the Chiefs will go back to the Super Bowl again, and they will win this time.
Chiefs 5-1. Chiefs over under is 12.5. Chiefs to win the conference is plus 250. I haven't made my best record in the league bets, the 1 seed bets, stuff like that. I've been looking at Buffalo a lot though, because
there's two teams in the AFC. Buffalo and Kansas City are a head above everybody else.
Yeah, and maybe if somebody crashes that, I think it's going to be Cleveland would be my pick, because I think they have a lot of talent. I know they're the Browns. I know they have.
I don't trust the quarterback to be on that level, to be honest with you.
I get it.
But I agree. I think Cleveland's okay. I'll tell you who I think is going to be improved. I think the Pats are going to be improved. I really do. I think they're going to surprise some people. I think hold that thought. I don't think to go to the Super Bowl, though. I don't think they're going to be that kind of team. But I think they're going to be much better. I really do.
I'm coming to them in 1 second, because I wanted to give you these Bills bets. Bills to get the 1 seed plus 470.
Don't like it. I think Chiefs will have the 1.
Chiefs is 2-1. So you go 2-1 for that. Okay.
Unless Mahomes gets hurt or they lose somebody like Kelsey or Mahomes, I think that Chiefs will be the 1 seed.
You're not worried about receiver depth with the Chiefs. Okay. Bills' best record was 10-1. Just giving you that one as well. All right. Pats, you brought up the Pats. I'm glad you did.
That's a pretty good value, I got to admit, because I think they only have to beat 1 team to do that. So I don't think it's going to come out of the NFC. I think it's going to be Kansas City or Buffalo. So I think that one at 10-1 is a if you want value, that's a hell of a value. It really is.
For Buffalo. Yeah.
They have best record. I agree. What are Chiefs to have best record?
That's I think 5-1.
I would at Buffalo, they're giving you a great value on that bet. That's a good bet to make just on value. Thinking if you had Kansas City have an injury, Buffalo to me is the second best team in the AFC by a lot.
I don't know if you can parlay props on FanDuel, but Allen was, I think, 13-1 to win MVP, and best record was 10-1. And I feel like those two things would happen simultaneously.
I would agree.
So you could either do both of those, or if you could parlay those, whatever. All right, my beloved New England Patriots and our new Lord and Savior, Mac Jones. Pats to make the playoffs, plus 125. Pats over is 9. There's been a lot of action. That's minus 140. I actually think the over should be 9.5. Great defense. Their running backs, they probably have the best collection of running backs in the league. They were just able to give away Sony Michel.
They love this Stevenson.
Rams. Oh my God, he's been a monster. They improved the receivers. Their offensive line, I think, is high level. Not only can they block, they're really good. And their front seven is potentially dominant against some of these matchups. I really like them. I think it's 11-6.
I think it is too. I agree with you. I have no argument. I agree. I think that it took him a year to consolidate everything. I think he understood what he wanted to do. He got the quarterback that he wanted the whole time. I do think Cam Newton will have a good year, and I also think that Jones is going to be very good.
Cam Newton's going to be off the team in a week.
No, I think Cam Newton's going to contribute. I really think so.
Really?
I think he's going. Yeah, I do. I think they'll both stay. I think they'll both play, and I would be surprised. I think Cam Newton's going to play well. I really do. I think that they will have a good year out of both guys. I think eventually Cam will turn the job over somewhere probably in the middle of the season. But I think that both quarterbacks will get plenty of action, and I think that the team's going to be vastly improved. And I also think the division, other than Buffalo, still has growing pains. So I think that I think they're going to be good. I wouldn't. I'd say 10 is pretty solid for the Pats anyway. I don't know about 11, maybe 10 will be solid, but I think they'll be an over. Yes.
You know Belichick pretty well. You've been a Belichick student over the years.
Yeah, we don't like each other, but I mean, we don't get along. But I've followed him for 30 years. Yeah.
Yeah, you have a legit feel for him.
Yes.
Do you think he wanted Mac Jones all along?
Yes.
And that he did a Kaiser Soze, kind of pretending he didn't, not trying to trade up because he studied the board and knew Mac Jones was going to fall to 15?
Yes.
Or do you think it was they fell into it a little bit, but he didn't totally love it?
No, I think he wanted them all along.
Okay.
I think he wanted them all along.
It seems like the Saints were trying to trade up ahead of them and couldn't get there. So once the center fell to the Chargers, they were golden, it seemed like.
I think he wanted them all along. I think it's one he wanted. I think the Brady win stung him more than you think. I think
explain.
Because you know what? It's like a seesaw. One legacy tips as the other legacy. It's who wins without whom, who does what. You even noticed that his other person in his life made some Tom Brady comments about how he didn't really play that well in the playoffs.
Who said that? Belichick's girlfriend said that?
Yes, she did.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
In the wintertime, yes.
Wow.
And she was right. The points she made were well taken. He had some rough moments in the postseason. He did have the defense kick in and do some big things. And I think that he'd never admit that, but I think that bothered him. Hey, he's human, and he also knows his place in history. They both do. They both covet their place in history. Walsh and Montana went this tit-for-tat thing all the time, too. And I think these guys do also. And I think Brady does, and I think Belichick does. And they'll never admit it, but I think they do. It's part of human nature. You know that. It's how the great ones keep score. Their score is different. They keep score differently. And he and Tom, there's a little bit of a yin and yang. He leaves them and wins a Super Bowl his first year. It's had his thing. It had his thing. There's no way around it.
It's a little like Kobe Shaq, where Kobe was pretty open about it. He wanted to win one more title than Shaq. I think with the Belichick thing, you made the key point. He cares about his place in history and how he relates to all of the years of the league, all the other coaches, winning, whatever his legacy is. I think way more than people realize. Like he had documentary crews following them around for entire year, like midway through it. He cares. I don't think people realize that he cares, though. I think they feel because he sucks in press conferences that he doesn't give a shit about this stuff. I think he does.
Here's the real truth, Bill. They all do. They all do. Okay? I don't care if you're talking about Krzyzewski, Knight, Parcells, Belichick, Walsh. They all do. They care. They care about whether they are, how they compare to each other. They care about where they stack up with Lombardi and Paul Brown. And those guys, they play in different generations, so there's no way to compete against them. But this, you don't think Belichick would like to win one without Tom? He would love to win one without Tom.
Well, I'll tell you the issue with the Pats. Gilmore's not 100% yet. I think he's going to start the year on PUP. They're a cornerback short. They're not. It's not bad. It's not like, oh my God, our D-backs are a disaster. But it's the one piece that if they get the Gilmore thing right and they give him an extension, maybe, I don't know how that's going to play out, but they're a shutdown corner short. They have depth, but they don't have like that one guy until he comes back, if he comes back.
They'd have to get a lot of help from the weather to beat either the Chiefs or the Bills. They wouldn't beat them on a fast field, either one of them.
Well, that would involve maybe trying to top one of them, but who knows? I mean, they play the AFC South and the NFC South. They have a lot of easy games.
But I think they're going to have a good year, and I think his edge, when you realize it. I mean, when you look at the coaches, you line them up after you get through the first couple. There's not a lot there. There really isn't when you look at it, and there's a lot of unproven coaches, and he has a big edge every week. And let's be honest, he intimidates these young coaches. I mean, they're looking across the field at a guy they grew up watching. It's like having Lombardi on the other side. I mean, he's worth points just there standing across the field,
right?
Just being on the field with him. He is that big a coaching legend now. He's that good.
Well, it would be really fun if we got Chiefs Pats at some point during this whole thing. Let me give you a couple more bets before you go.
Good.
Worst record? You could just go chalk. You could take
Houston. I mean, if they
Houston's 2-1. The Lions are 4-1.
I don't think Lions for this reason. Dan Campbell is a psycho. I'm telling you, I go back with him. He's a psycho. And you know what? I think he's going to be a good coach. It's not going to come this year. And I don't like his quarterback. But I'll tell you something. He's a psycho. And he will push his players really, really hard. He believes in that. That's how he's cut. And I would say the whole Houston thing looks like a complete, let's just get through the year and get to, the first pick kind of thing, Rams,
where do you stand on Stafford these days with a real coach and real weapons and a huge $6 billion stadium and all these things he just didn't have in Detroit?
Rams finally have a real quarterback. Stafford, if he's healthy, and he's been beat up a lot, he's got a lot of scar tissue on him, but he is the real deal as a quarterback. He has been. People don't realize how good Stafford is physically. He's a really talented player. He could have had a different career if he had been somewhere else. But they finally have a quarterback. And if they had had any semblance of quarterback, they would have beaten the Pats in the Super Bowl. Their quarterback played so abominably in that game, he never got over it. And he shouldn't, because he was so bad, he stunk the house out in that game. He really did. He had open receivers all over the field and never hit them all day. I mean, it was a joke how bad he was in that game. They should have won that Super Bowl.
Rams 10.5 for wins. 2-1 for the division.
I'd say over. I don't love the Rams, and I'm not on the McVay bandwagon as much as some people are. But I think he's solid. I think they'll have a good year. I think the Niners will have a bounce back year, but I think they'll have a good year.
All right. The rookie QBs, that'll be the last thing we talk about. So you already mentioned Lawrence.
Yes.
Justin Fields on the Bears. They're all excited about him, even though they're not going to be able to block for them. We'll talk about Jason Goff with that in a second. Mac Jones looks good. Trey Lance, I'm sure we'll see him, but I don't think he's going to be... I think they'll be careful with how they bring him in. He's pretty young still. Zach Wilson on the New York Jets. What is your take? Did you like the pick? Do you think he's going to be good? What have you seen so far? What's your reaction?
Everybody's saying nice things about him right now. I noticed early last year that BYU was beating everybody by 50 points like everybody else did, which they did all year last year. I didn't see him play a lot last year, so I didn't feel like I had as much of a feel on him as I might some other quarterback at a school that you see more of and better competition against. I'm hearing good things. I think he'll be good. I think he will be better than, because he's going to get better coached. What went on there the last couple of years was not Donald's fault. I think Donald's going to fit in very well in Carolina, and I also think Rule's a good coach. I think Carolina's going to have a pretty good year this year. I think they had a good year last year. They played very competitively. I think Rule's a very good, he's an up-and-coming coach. He's one of the up-and-coming coaches in the league. I think he's very good. A lot of teams wanted him. Jets almost hired him. They made a big mistake by not getting him. They almost hired him. And he looks like the real thing. And I think they will be much improved, and they could go over their number this year, which I believe is 7.5. I'm not expecting big things from the Jets, and they've also had a million injuries on defense, so key guys already. Jets need to get that offensive line straightened out. I don't think it is yet. They have some wide receivers now, especially good things they're saying about Elijah Moore being very explosive. I think they'll have their moments. I think Wilson will probably be okay. I think he'll be passable, and he'll give people reason for optimism. I don't think he'll be the next coming of Broadway Joe, but I think he will, at least he won't have people jumping out of buildings.
I'm going to go backwards. I want you to see how many Jets coaches you can name in a row going backwards before you forget what the next person is. All right, so we'll start. Salah Zizi, you mentioned him. Gase, he was the coach. Who was the coach before Adam Gase?
Yeah, I probably will forget right away. That. And now I haven't thought about it in a long time.
It was 4 years of Todd Bowles. So,
geez, Todd was there for 4 years. Absolutely.
Who was before Todd Bowles? Can you get this one?
Who was before Todd Bowles?
He was there for 6 years. Beat the Patriots.
Oh, Rex.
Rex.
Yeah.
Who was before Rex?
Before Rex was Mangini.
Who was before Mangini?
Who never should have been fired. He won 2 out of 3 years there. He won 10 games and 9 games. And if he could have got along with the owner, I think could have been a long-time coach there. And I think he's a talented coach. I really do.
And there was a lot of talent that he left behind. Do you remember who was before him?
Herm.
All right, now it's going to... you might get this, actually. Who was right before Herm? 1 year only.
Al Groh.
Then your guy, Parcells.
And then Parcells.
Do you remember who was before Parcells?
Before Parcells was Dick McPherson.
No, that's
New
Patriots.
England. Hold on. Wait a second. Before Parcells was...
one of the great...
what's it called? Rich Kotite.
Kotite, good. All right. Then 1 year of...
Before Kotite?
Yeah. It was a 1 year and out.
1 year before Kotite.
I love the Jets. Jets history should be its own podcast. It was your guy, Pete Carroll.
Oh, yeah. 1 year. Oh, yeah. Because you know what? He went 6-10. He lost his last 5 games. Pete went 6-10 1 year, right? Absolutely. So
he was
right.
out.
And before that was Bruce Cosler.
And then before that was our guy Joe Walton. And then it goes backwards.
Who just passed away. And before that, Walt Michaels.
I mean, that's a lot of coaches for one team.
And before Walt Michaels was probably Charlie Winter.
That's a lot of coaches, Mike.
A lot of coaches, yeah, and a lot of bad decisions. And it's funny, Parcells was only there 3 years because the ownership changed. If Leon had lived, he would have stayed, but he didn't. Woody came in, they didn't really hit it off. And Groh took over for 1 year. Then he went to Virginia. Then they went through the years, obviously, with Herm. Mangini built the foundation, and Rex won his first 2 years with Mangini's players, and then started drafting his own players, and he was terrible. And then they fell apart. Mangini was the guy. And listen, I'm not blaming the Jets for Mangini because he was not able to get along with anybody. And he really didn't even treat the owner with respect.
Yeah.
He needed to grow up. If he could have been a different person, he could have been a long-time coach in this league. He won 10 games and 9 games in 3 years there. He should have been there for a long time. But he needed to grow up. And there's a guy who should be coaching in the league. Too bad he's not because he has a lot of talent.
Well, then back to Zach Wilson. Since Ken O'Brien in 1991, here are all the people that led the Jets in passing. Ready?
Go ahead.
Browning Nagel.
Right.
Boomer Esiason. Frank Reich. Neil O'Donnell. I was brought here to win games. Vinny Testaverde. Ray Lucas. Vinny Testaverde again twice. Chad Pennington.
Yep.
Some guy named Bollinger. I don't even remember Bollinger.
Yeah,
Who was Bollinger?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Rick Meyer played 7 games for Parcells one time when Vinny was hurt.
Chad Pennington 2 years in a row. Favre once. 4 Sanchez. 2 Smith. What Smith was that? I don't even remember.
Geno Smith.
Oh, yeah, Geno Smith. 2 Fitzpatrick, McCown, and Darnold.
Oh.
So they've had, I think, 13 quarterbacks lead them in passing since 1991.
That is paying for the deal with the devil that brought them Broadway Joe. That's what that is.
That was the guarantee. That's what happens.
They got the great quarterback who gave them, the day at the top of the mountain and became the biggest star in the world. And since then, they've had to live with everything that they had their moments. Vinny went 29 touchdowns, 7 intercepts when they went to the AFC title game under Parcells and led 10-0. And I made the dumbest statement of my life. I am sitting in the first row with my wife row in Denver. Atlanta has just upset Minnesota, which was 15-1 that year on the missed kick, okay? Atlanta wins. I'm watching it on the scoreboard. Their backup tight end from Oregon blocks a field goal. They're up 10-0 now. Okay, the Jets. I turned to my wife and said, Jets will destroy Atlanta. We are going to win the Super Bowl. The Jets did not make a forward gain the rest of the game. They got outscored 23-0. And I was in the airport 4 hours later saying, am I the biggest dope? I am never going to say anything like that again as long as I live.
Yeah, and the Terrell Davis, the rest was history.
Oh,
that's why That guy was great. I was down with
him
him for Hall of Fame because that guy for 4 or 5 years, whatever it was, that guy was unbelievable.
The game is 10-0. It's very windy. Testaverde's playing great. Elway comes out with a half waggle and throws it 55 yards down the field. It's complete. But they come back and they're moving the ball. Byers fumbles it. Every good Jet fumbled the ball. The most dependable players he ever had all fumbled the ball. And it was a nightmare. And they lost 23-10. And, they would have killed Atlanta in the Super Bowl. Would have killed them. Atlanta was terrible. And then Denver went and killed Atlanta in the Super Bowl. I'll never forget that as long as I live. They were up 10-0 in the third quarter.
There's so many of those in sports, right? Like Milwaukee just had one where they steal a title and the years pass and everybody will be like, Milwaukee wins the title. And you look at KD's foot on the line and that just flips the playoffs, right? You're right. If the Jets just get through that Denver game somehow and don't completely fall apart and they beat Atlanta, then where's Parcells now?
He probably signs
Parcells is
deal.
but he's number one. Belichick would have been trying to, and then finally gotten past him with the Atlanta game probably. But Parcells would have been hovering over everybody forever.
Unbelievable. And I'm telling you, and he wanted to win because he knew that Mr. Hess was very sick.
Yeah.
And he knew he wasn't going to be around very long, and he wanted to get him that championship. And that was probably the toughest loss he ever had. That or the Ram game that they lost, to the Rams in '89, which they thought they had a Super Bowl team, and they went up winning it 90, but they should have won. The Rams came back and beat them in overtime. Remember in that game, and they played terribly that day.
That all evened out because they never should have won the Roger Craig game.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, come on.
I was at that game too, and listen, they made a miraculous play, obviously, in that game to even get the ball back. So you're right about that, and those two have a way of evening it out. But the Jets are due for some luck. I don't know what to make of this coach. I've watched him on TV jump around, obviously, like everybody else. I don't know him. He's been very, very much out there. He's been at a lot of games. I was at an Islander playoff game. He was there. I saw him on TV in the Net playoff games. I heard him he got ripped for taking a police escort from New Jersey to the Garden, which you don't do.
Yeah.
So he's out there trying to be a little bit of a celebrity before he coaches any games. Let's see how he does. I don't know how he's going to do. What's your thought on the Jets coach?
I thought he was going to get the Lions job, and then I heard he just didn't do well in the interview. Everybody says he's a defensive genius, all that stuff. But I don't know. It's weird to me. You have the defensive genius, but then you put all your chips behind this rookie quarterback. I would kind of want the coach that his main job was making the rookie quarterback awesome. So who's their offensive coordinator? Like they're going to have to figure out who the McDaniels is for the situation if they have a defensive coach.
Now they lost Knapp, who was going to be coaching the quarterback, which is obviously. So they've already had tragedy, and they've lost a lot of defensive players. So I think obviously it's going to take them a year. Which one of the rookie quarterbacks you think is going to be the best?
Lawrence. I think Lawrence. I think Lawrence is like
pains, though. He's going to have growing pains.
But worst case scenario, he's Andrew Luck. I mean, I don't see how he's anything lower than that.
One guy that I really believe in, who I think I won't say who he is, but he has a great history with quarterbacks, said to me, I said, what's the downside with Lawrence? He said, the downside is he's a 12-year starter. And you say, boy, he never was as good as we really thought. He said, the upside is he's Peyton Manning or an all-time great. He said, he's got everything. He's got everything that Aikman had, that Elway had, that Peyton had. And Peyton never had the great arm. Elway and Aikman had arms. Peyton did it without a great arm. He didn't have a great arm. But that's what people have to realize. He never had that kind of dynamic arm that the other guys had. Lawrence has the arm. I mean, he has everything. He's grounded. He's got the whole deal. He's going to be a big star in this league for a long time. It's going to be fascinating to see how you remember something? Urban Meyer has never lost. He doesn't understand losing. He's never had a losing streak. He lost 32 games in his whole life. He's 178-32 with 3 titles. He's a coaching god. He doesn't know how to lose. How he handles losing is going to be very interesting.
Lawrence, to me, I'm crossing sports, but it reminds me of when Anthony Davis was in the draft. And it was just like, worst case scenario, this guy is still going to be really good. Like, that's our worst case scenario. He'll make like 4 all-star teams. That's how Lawrence is just, he checks every box.
And, once in a while, a guy comes in the league that just cannot miss. The Atlanta tight end, you can just write it down. He is going to be an absolute stud superstar player from game one. Get ready for it. It is coming. He has got he's just one of those guys. Cannot miss.
And it's funny because the legacy of the awesome tight ends, it's like Gronk's the best. Kelsey's getting close.
Real close.
Gonzalez.
And Kittles is good. And Kittles is really good too.
Yeah. But like Pitts just seems like he will immediately go in that class. He will 80 catches, 1,200 yards, 11 TDs. Like it'll just, you can see where it's going. Mike, it was awesome to see you.
Hey, listen, how's everything going? How's life? Good?
Everything is fantastic. How's life with you? A lot of golf?
Everything
a lot of sunshine?
Great. Playing a lot of golf. Also, whenever you have an exciting young horse, it's good. We have it's a little early to rank them, but we have, depending on what you think, the second or third best 2-year-old in the country right now.
Whoa. What's the name?
High Oak. He won the Saratoga Special. He'll run in the Champagne on October 2nd at Belmont. My partner, Leon Slider, who is the guy who runs Casamigos Tequila for Clooney and Randy, he's my partner. We're co-owners on him. And we could have 2 horses in the Breeders' Cup. We have 1 in this year. And he could be our second in the Breeders' Cup. I think he'll be there. But more importantly, he could be one of the Derby favorites. So he's just got to stay healthy. His name is High Oak.
Holy shit. So you could be, that could be them showing you in the Derby. That would be unbelievable.
How nice would that be?
My God. Well, good luck. All right. Don't be a stranger. I'm going to bring you back during the season. I know JJ loves having you on New York too. So
how's
we're pulling you in.
doing?
JJ's kicking ass. He's kicking
Great.
ass.
Glad to hear
it.
He's a good kid. Thanks.
He's a really good kid. All right. Good to see you.
Be well, Bill.
All right. When Simply Safe Home Security's founders, Chad and Eleanor Lawrence, designed their first security system in their kitchen, they did it for a very personal reason. You know what it was? Their friends had just had their home broken into. They were struggling to find a security system that was simple to set up and would make them feel safe again. Simple. Safe. Making people feel safe is what Simply Safe has been doing ever since that moment 15 years ago. A passion to protect people not only drives every engineering detail in its products, but it motivates every interaction with its customers. Simply Safe has highly trained security experts ready whenever you need them, whether that's during a fire, a burglar, a medical emergency, or even just when you're setting up the system. There's always someone there who has your back to keep you safe and to make sure you feel safe. So as my listener, you can save 20% on your Simply Safe security system and get your first month free when you sign up for interactive monitoring service. Just visit simplysafe.com/BS to customize your system and start protecting your home and family today. That is Simply Safe with 2 I's, simplysafe.com/BS. All right, look, people pick this podcast apart in a lot of different ways. One of the ways is not enough Chicago, too much Boston, a lot of New York, a lot of LA, too much Philly. The Ringer has a lot of Philly people. We just don't have enough Chicago people. Jason Goff is here. You'll be seeing more of him in the Ringer. I'll just say that. More announcements coming next week. First of all, welcome to the podcast. Good to see you.
It's a pleasure. It's good to be seen. I've been a lot of places in this media world, so now I can etch it off that I've hung out with Dollar Bill Simmons for a couple minutes.
Before we talk about the Bears, which is the reason I'm pulling you on, because I love the Bears under and I really want to dive into it.
Yeah.
I floated a Zach LaVine, Ben Simmons trade to you that you were repulsed by. You got upset. And then you were like, wait a second. And where are you landing on that now? Because that's still, I think, the second most logical Ben Simmons trade.
So when you first threw it out to me, obviously I was like, that's probably not what the Bulls would want to do right now in terms of taking back somebody who has had some public issues over the last couple of years, especially this last playoffs, where that to me was one of the defining moments of the playoffs. Not one of the best, not one of the worst, but one of the defining moments of him not taking the shot right there for everybody to see. I'm a huge Ben Simmons fan. I still am one of the 6 or 7 people who believe hey man, If a 6'10 Jason Kidd kind of player is running around out there, then I don't know. There's a lot of dudes at point guard that I'm not really high on like I am him. The only thing that I would say is Zach LaVine is coming a very important time in Bulls history where the Derrick Rose thing happened, the phenomenon of Derrick Rose, and then the crash with the injuries. The Jimmy Butler thing happened, the growth of Jimmy Butler, and then them not wanting to pay Jimmy Butler and Jimmy Butler moving on. And then the trade that brought Lowry Markkanen and all these, Zach LaVine and all these other guys. It would seem to me that Zach LaVine has found a special place where you don't know if he is the number one on a championship team, and he probably isn't. But at the same time, this fan base is looking at it like, are you going to get 27 points on damn near 50, 40, 80 shooting again out of somebody like, Ben Simmons? Obviously not, but are you going to find that draft, that are you going to have that draft capital to get that player? And it's something that you mentioned with, I believe Russillo mentioned it, where 2015, 2016, you can look back at the top 10 draft picks and only 2 of them are with their team still. So building through the draft, unless you have that first through third pick, maybe it's tough, finding that franchise cornerstone. I think Bulls fans and the Bulls organization and Zach have met at a weird position where it's just time to figure out if you can rock with this. If this was any other time, I think the Ben Simmons, Zach LaVine thing would be more of a thought. But right now, I don't know that Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley know what they have. And I think they want to find out what they have this last year before they have to pay Zach or before they have to do something else. And I don't know if Ben Simmons is the guy that's going to fit into their game plan. Now, I do know that they love guys who push the ball up, guys who move the ball. Ben Simmons is that. But, I think from what people have seen in this last couple of playoffs, they've soured on it. I'm one of the only people who haven't. I don't know if I'd pull it off because I'd still be a little hesitant that Ben has to get over something, whether it be in his head or whatever's going on. But, yeah, I'm high on both players. I'm high on them in a different way. And I don't think it's going to happen. But like you said, it's a logical fit on each side because Lonzo Ball, I think, can play with Ben Simmons, even though you think that they're the similar players. I don't. I think a lot, like you mentioned, Lonzo has learned how to shoot with regularity from distance, especially the second half of last season. So, and DeMar DeRozan, he's still one of the best isolation scorers, or one of the most efficient isolation scorers we have in the game. So, Ben Simmons passing it to DeMar DeRozan or getting it pushed up by Lonzo Ball wouldn't be an issue. I think the fit is a little bit better than people would think. I don't know if this organization is willing to let go of another player similar to what they've seen over the last couple of years and guys who might be franchise cornerstones. But you got to win something, right? You can't really stake a claim to anything if you're Zach LaVine until you win something. And I think that's the next step in their journey.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if the Olympics helped them at all too. That would be the other piece with that. So it's weird. I'm both out on Ben Simmons, but I'm also willing to be sucked back in the moment he has his own team with a bunch of shooters and offensive guys. And he's, as you said, could he be Jason Kidd kinda? Like, yeah, defensively he could.
Yeah.
Could he be like a very unselfish guy who's filling up the box score? And, I guess the last 6 minutes is just the piece. And we've talked a lot about different people on this pod about it. Just like, can he get over the hump the last 6 minutes? Can he get over being afraid to fail, basically? Because when you take 3 shots in 7 games, you're afraid to fail in the playoffs. So can he get over that? Does he need like a sports psychiatrist? Does it need is it like a sports movie? Is this Tin Cup 2? I don't know.
So I suffer, like, when I see certain things happen to athletes on a very, a much smaller scale. Like, I suffer from anxiety like nobody I know around me. And my lady is a therapist. So I find out about my anxiety, and I have found out about my anxiety especially over the last 5 or 6 months or so. And when you see guys in that moment where, I think it's either one, the Showtime documentary, I mean, he talked about those things, and we've learned about, the history of what he's dealt with in terms of, imposter syndrome and anxiety and all those other things that people who go to normal everyday gigs suffer through as well. I wonder too, what part of it is that, and what part of it is being forced to take your cool off? We see it how many times where there are awesome teams that just aren't quite forced enough to drop the cool shit and get busy. Like, you can't tell me Lob City shouldn't have been competing in multiple Western Conference finals. Who was going to take their cool off first? And the guy who they all looked at, and Chris Paul as the little tyrant, was like, yo, take the cool off because we're going to miss an opportunity. We're going to miss a window, right? I wonder if Ben, in this age that he's growing up in too, you got to show that, hey, man, I'm cool. Like, that shit don't faze me. And I'm going to show my Rari. And I'm going to, but at the same time, are you going to take your cool off? Like, if he gets shipped to Sacramento, right? So for De'Aaron Fox or something crazy, say something crazy happens, and you end up in that C-Web situation where you're like, all I can do now is ball because, the nightlife ain't popping. Ain't nobody coming here to play with me. And the next thing you know, you end up with Mike Bibby and Peja Stojakovic and Vlade Divac and Lawrence Funderburk and, Bobby Jackson and all. You know what I mean? Like, maybe, just maybe, sometimes you got to get dropped on your head to realize that, you're drop proof, right? Dead cat bounce. I think Ben Simmons got a lot of talent. And we're talking about a 24-year-old too, man. But I just hope it comes together soon enough for his career, not only to prove the promise that it had at the beginning, but also for me to be right. Let's be honest about it. I'm simply watching these things to be right. And when I'm wrong, like thinking that Tim Duncan wouldn't be, awesome, and thinking that Keith Van Horn would be a Hall of Famer. Like, when I'm wrong, I really don't like to dwell on it too much. But when I'm right, I like to think I'm pretty dope. So I need Ben Simmons to get to that triple-double machine and lead the team to, at least the conference finals on his own before I can do that. Give me
22 seconds on the state of mind of the Bulls fan right now, especially coming off the Last Dance, the aborted Derrick Rose effort. Era/effort where basically the highlights were the 2009 Celtics series and and basically having the best record in the league during the year he got hurt, and that's really it. And then there's not Joakim Noah, I guess, making first team All NBA, but just not a lot of fun. And then the weird Jimmy Butler trade but where are we now? Where are we mentally? 22 seconds. Give it to me.
We get it, Bill. We get it. We've been kicked in the rocks and we are kick proof seemingly, because something is going to be interesting, fascinating, different about this team. Like, if it doesn't make the playoffs, the anger is going to be palpable. But the fascination with this team is different than I've seen in a very long time since the Jimmy Butler years. People actually were coming back last year and were let down, but they got enough of a bite of Zach LaVine that were like, oh, all he needs is some help. Well, AK and Acme, went out there and did what they had to do. And now you got to sink or swim because...
All right, so optimism.
Yeah, yeah. Fascination, intrigue, optimism, and knowing that this is going to look like the cocaine 80s where you're going to give up 130 points and have to win by scoring 135.
That should be part of their marketing. We're back to the cocaine 80s. Here we go, 130 to 125. Let's go. All right, Bears. So one of my favorite bets, and we just talked about this with Mike Francesa, for unders. Normally people go overs with NFL. They're like, I like this. I think this is going to happen. And it's more positive. Right. It's more fun to bet on positive futures. I look at the Bears. The Bears over under is 7.5. They'd have to go 8-9 to beat your bet. They play the Lions twice. Yeah. Other than that, they play the AFC North, who's going to have three really good teams. They play the NFC West, which is a gauntlet. Then they have Green Bay twice. They got Minnesota twice.
That week 6 through 11 is nasty.
Right. So I'll give that to you. Packers at Bucks, 49ers at Steelers Monday night. And there's an at Raiders game in week 5 before that. Then they go on a bye. And then you have this whole thing with Fields, who I loved in the draft. I mean, I have our Lord and Savior Mac Jones now, so I don't have any any remorse about Justin Fields, but I really like him. I think he's going to be good. But I watched some of the Bears on Saturday, and you can't block. Nobody can block. That seems important. I don't love the skill guys. It just doesn't seem like a good team. On top of it, Matt Nagy has to be the favorite for first coach fired, right? So give me the case for the Bears going 8-9.
Yeah, it's nasty because let's start with the last thing you said about Matt Nagy being the first coach that's fired. Or Matt Nagy could have a secret contract extension along with Ryan Pace that nobody knows about, because what's happening right now is weird. The Bears might have the greatest quarterback that they've ever had in their franchise's history, and he might be the third quarterback. And
what a way to get your fans fired up.
Right. Well, see, this is the thing, too, with Kyle Fuller, leaving and some other members of this team not being here, and Akeem Hicks, talking that talk during the offseason. I was saying to myself and asking my guys who host local sports radio, like, what the hell are y'all selling? Like, what can you tell people about Bears training camp? And then the draft came. And then closer and closer to Justin Fields coming off the board, you said, oh, shit, are they going to do this? And I'll tell you now, they can win 5 games this year, 6 games this year. And if Justin Fields, like you said, our Lord and Savior from Mac Jones, our quarterback, if Justin Fields can do something that Vince Evans and Cordell Stewart and Henry Burris and maybe the 3 or 4 other brothers that have ever played quarterback for the Chicago Bears can do, there's going to be one side of town that is jumping for joy no matter what, and then there's going to be the other side of town who is just happy because they're Bears fans. Listen, whatever it is, if it's going to suck, it better lead to Justin Fields getting on the field as soon as possible, because the line, yes, Jason Peters is an older dude, 39 years old, and you're not going to go on the couch and find tackles who can still get it done. I'm not saying Jason can't, but the injury factor is real. You're 39 years old and you've missed time because of injuries. Now, if he goes out there and plays all 17 and plays at an all-pro level, I'll be surprised. If he plays 6 or 7 games at a really, really high level and gets hurt, I won't be. And then you've got Larry Borum and Tevin Jenkins, who's had a back surgery already as your second-round pick. If you can't block it, you can't beat it. You can't win. The defense is going to have to win. And there's corner issues. Like, Jalen Johnson is their number 1, but he's a young guy. Artie Burns, I think, should be the number 2. Kendall Vildor is a guy who they drafted, who they like, who I'm still waiting to see something out of. Their safeties, and Gibson and Jackson are 2 playmakers, but Jackson is a guy who, has become a playmaker, and maybe some of the subtleties have been skipped. He's a big play guy, but there's some missed tackle stuff that people worry about. And last year, when he didn't force a lot of turnovers, people were asking, all right, so what does Eddie Jackson do? I'm looking forward to him because he's got the weird number 2 this year. By the way, the weird numbers are going to mess me up all year long. The college numbers, Eddie's wearing 4, Damian Williams is wearing 8. And as you said, the skill positions. Cole Kmet is supposed to be taking over for Jimmy Graham. Cole Kmet didn't get on the field in the first half of the season the way that any Bears fan would have liked. So how are you going to manage these dudes?
Can I interrupt you on Cole Kmet for 1 second? We got, my son collects football cards. We got this awesome Cole Kmet autographed, limited. It was like, 1 of 20. So I was like, man, I hope Cole Kmet's good. And then you watch the Bears, you're like, all right.
Right. No, he's gonna be fine.
He's fine. He's fine. I'm not gonna be selling that card on Golden Auctions for $1 million. I guess is my point.
Right.
He's fine.
Right. He's not. Yeah, he's not. Yeah, he's not like Cole Gates or Cole Gonzalez or or Cole Gronkowski. He's Cole Kmet right now. Right.
And your running backs are like a C-. The thing with me with like
the damn ball though, you gotta give him the ball. David Montgomery is a player. I think he's a player.
He came on second half of the year. I agree with you.
He didn't get the ball.
Like
Matt Nagy tried to prove how good an offensive mind he was with a guy who needed him to develop him, Mitchell Trubisky. And that went sideways. And if you're going to tell me that Andy Dalton's the starter, then don't tell me that competition is the most important thing, because obviously the best player, and everybody sees it, is Justin Fields. If you don't want to put him behind a bad line, fine. But is the line going to get any better when it's hurt and it's week 6? So there's intrigue, and just like the Bulls, there's intrigue, there's fascination, but I don't see this team competing for a playoff spot. And if they do, I'll be surprised. And it's probably going to be because of the defense and bringing the kid along. Because Justin Fields is a rookie. He's going to make his mistakes. But I think he's just as good as Justin Herbert or some of these other guys who we've seen, star in their first year. He just doesn't have the weapons that they have. Allen Robinson is amazing. Darnell Mooney is an up-and-coming star. But after that, I think you got a bunch of special teams dudes. There's some good stories. Rodney Adams is a great story if you really check out his deal. playing a game for his late mother and just had a kid. But the talent is sparse. Like, the talent is on one side of the ball, and then on the other side of the ball, you just don't know what you have across the board outside of Allen Robinson.
Well, the move is you can't start him I'm not the first person to make this point. You can't start him week 1 in a night game against the Rams with no offensive line. You just can't. Then you got Bengals week 2. It would be too easy to be like, just save him to week 2. Maybe you try to steal that game with Dalton. You got at Cleveland week 3. Maybe avoid that. But then week 4 Lions seems like the time. That's when I would. Otherwise, you just got to start him and throw him against the Rams and see what you have. But I just wouldn't do that. I don't think it's worth it. The Rams could that could be like after watching that hit he took when his helmet got knocked off, I'm like, I'm not starting this guy against the Rams.
And you know what? That hit was very important, because that hit came because he slid the protection. And when you slide the protection, there's a hole in the offense that you can't block. He never looked at the hole and got his head blown up. And in the fourth quarter, with 8:45 left, the same play happened, and he stared it down and he completed, which was a 8-9 yard slant or something like that, to that hot zone. But in that moment, the same play happened a quarter later, and he saw it, he digested it, and he determined how to execute a professional play. So, I wouldn't be surprised if you see him in the fourth quarter of that Rams game, because I don't think the Bears can block.
Oh, a little garbage time. A little 38-10 Fields comes in for a couple snaps. Before we go, give me the T-shirt jersey percentage by December of Fields jerseys compared to everyone else in the Bears. What is it, like 9 out of 10?
It's already that way.
90%, 95?
Yeah, it's already that way. And the other 10% is wearing Alex Caruso jerseys, because he's the grit and grind that a certain section of Chicago really needs to see perform well. You know what I mean?
Well, listen, I'm excited to have more Chicago talk on the Ringer. I'll just leave it at that. We might have some announcements next week. We're just planting some seeds here. Congrats on Fields, though. I have a lot of Bears fans in my life, and the fact that I have friends who are like in their late 40s who are like, I've never had a good quarterback. Like, fuck you that you had to watch Cam Newton for a year. I've been watching your version of Cam Newton last year for 40 years. The highlight for us was like Jim McMahon and one Jay Cutler year. Like, leave me alone. So now you have somebody. Congrats.
Hey, this is for Steve Stenstrom and Peter Tom Willis and Mike Tomzak.
Peter Tom Willis.
And Moses Moreno and Chad Hutchinson and all the guys who came before him. I am telling you now, I was high on Justin Fields the last 2 years in college. Last year in college, I thought he was the best quarterback in college football, to be honest with you. And now we just hope that Chicago doesn't break him, because Chicago is known. Ask Musa Muhammad, as he said, that's where receivers go to die. Well, if they're going to die, that means the quarterbacks are out, putting them in the grave. So let's hope that Justin Fields is the quarterback for this team for 12, 15 years, and we take a couple of trips to the Super Bowl, because this city needs it, man. 85 was a long time. I'm 40 years old, okay? I was 5 years old the last time the team that everybody is under the umbrella of won a Super Bowl. There's Sox fans, there's Bears fans, there's Cubs fans, there's Bulls fans, but everybody's a Bears fan, right? Everybody's a Bears fan in this city, and it would be good to see that position, the most important position in professional sports, to be manned with confidence.
To be locked down, yeah. All right. Yeah. Jason Goff, good to see you. Look forward to seeing more from you.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, man.
Take care. This episode is brought to you by Nissan. The all-new 2022 Nissan Pathfinder's intelligent 4x4 is ready to conquer new adventures and rugged terrains. I mean, my favorite outdoor activities, nothing beats throwing a tennis ball to my dog in the Pacific Ocean. I had my beloved Rufus forever. Now I have Murph, training him to be Rufus 2.0. He can be the one now to fetch the balls for me in the Pacific Ocean. That's my favorite thing to do outdoors, throwing the ball to the dog. Well, this Pathfinder, it can tow up to 6,000 pounds if you really want to enjoy the outdoors. If you really want to go out there, do some skiing, some hiking, whatever. However you enjoy the outdoors, the Pathfinder has you covered. It's a great car. Return to rugged in the all-new 2022 Nissan Pathfinder. To learn more at nissanusa.com. Available intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions. Towing capacity varies by configuration. Always secure cargo. See towing guide and Nissan owner's manual for proper use. This episode of the Bill Simmons Podcast is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. The job search can be a grind, especially when you're chasing a dream, just trying to get your foot in the door. I remember I spent pretty much all the mid-90s trying to get my foot through the door. I was doing everything. I was at a newspaper, writing obituaries, covering high school sports, answering phones, doing Chinese food orders. You just never know. You never know how long you have to go until you get your break. Well, ZipRecruiter knows that the general experience of looking for a job is pretty sucky. That's why they figured out a way to make it unsucky. When you sign up on ZipRecruiter.com, you can create a free profile. Then you get matched to great jobs plus a lot more. And ZipRecruiter will proactively pitch your profile to employers whose jobs match your experience. Plus, if you like the job, you can apply to it and many others with just one click. It's that easy. So sign up for free on ZipRecruiter.com today and experience the better way to find a job. Once again, go to ZipRecruiter.com right now to sign up absolutely free and put ZipRecruiter to work for you. All right, anytime it gets super weird with ESPN, I always bring Jim Miller in. He wrote the definitive book about ESPN. He also wrote the definitive books about SNL and CAA. He has a book coming out about HBO in, when is it, November, December?
November 16th.
Yeah. All right, so I texted you. I said, is this the craziest ESPN year ever? And you were like, ha, not even close. Like you just scoffed at me. What was the craziest ESPN year ever?
I think the big battle with Keith and Dan, because they were straddling two eras. They were, still Sleepy Bristol, but at the same time, all of a sudden, for the first time, they're on the cover of TV Guide, and they're trying to repress talent, and they're trying to keep everything like the toothpaste back in the tube. And so it was all over the place with Berman, with, Bob Lee and Robin Roberts and Charlie Steiner. I mean, there was a lot going on then. And I think that there were a couple of years in the 90s where it was pretty tough. The only difference is that it was kept quiet.
Until you unearthed all of these little nuggets for your book. I mean, some other stuff came out, but way more people watching ESPN in the 90s too. That's the other thing. You figure like the cable audience was probably 4 times what it is now, something like that, I would guess.
Well, SportsCenter was appointment viewing. I mean, you didn't even have a phone to get shit on. I mean, so, right. It was just a whole different time. But they still were very, very concerned with keeping. You remember Steve Bornstein said it was up to me. I'd rather robots doing the shows. So,
maybe we're headed that way. That might be ESPN in 2030.
Without a doubt. AI will be taking over the whole network.
Computer-generated anchors from the past doing SportsCenter and PTI. So a lot happened this year already. We had the Rachel Maria thing, which is in the running for, I think, weirdest ESPN scandal we've had. It's not number 1, but I think it's a strong 2 seed in the bracket. And then now Stephen A. Max is off First Take, I guess because Stephen A. seems to be like he's gaining power. And then all of a sudden yesterday, Rachel Nichols got blasted out of there. Jump got canceled. She's out. And both of the principals in the Maria Rachel saga, which overshadowed the finals in some ways, not always, because the basketball was really good, but it just keeps going and going. There are new people in charge. There are people getting pushed out. There's talent gaining power. Signature shows, the chemistry and the talent on those shows is just getting flipped. And you're saying this isn't even remotely the craziest, but what's been the biggest surprise for you this summer?
Look, the Rachel Marie is certainly, it's stunning in the sense that so much of it could have been avoided. And it wounds up being incredibly ironic, right? I mean, now remember, I don't know if it's been reported or not, but 5 or 6 months, several months after this recording that started everything off, Rachel got a contract extension. I mean, everything was fine with ESPN and Rachel Nichols. They went back to her, and it wasn't even like her contract was up. They went into an existing contract and gave her an extension. And so all of a sudden, some people put together a portfolio for the New York Times, and it drops coincidentally at a key time, both for the basketball programs at ESPN and also before Maria's contract. lo and behold, there's a article, and then the world turns upside down. There was nothing new. There was nothing new in terms of what management knew. It just was a it's an idea of how the response was, and that's a bit tricky.
Well, also how it affected some of the other people involved in the NBA coverage, how it affected Black employees who wondered why the network didn't do anything. Like, there's a lot of things, but ultimately it seems like the decision they made to basically not handle it at all and just kind of hope it went away was this very old school 80s, 90s decision that I'm just not sure you could do in the internet anymore. But really, it seems like the decision was made by HR, because they're the ones deciding, could she sue us if we did anything? And HR's like, yeah, you probably can't get rid of her because she could do this, this, and that. And then 5 months later, you give her an extension. So now at that point, if you're reporting that, then now you really can't do anything. But it just seems like a clusterfuck, Jim.
I mean, why can't she sue them now?
That's a great question. I assume the way all of this came out, and she had a tweet right after the announcement, that there was some sort of detente that was reached, but who knows? You're right. Maybe she could.
I mean, first of all, just in terms of, it's a two-party state, right? So you can't be recorded on a phone call without your permission. And then, she's certainly got a case. I'm not a legal scholar, but I think that's one of the things that a lot of people are wondering, why she didn't sue before, and will she sue now? That's a pretty big question. I guess some people in Burbank have evaluated that, or maybe it's part of her separation agreement. I have no idea, but that's a big question. I mean, part of it also is, look, because you used to be part of it. NBA programming at ESPN is like a ground war in Southeast Asia. They just can't get it right.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, you had Adam Silver turning into David Stern by talking about like a network's programming and how they're handling things. I mean, Adam's been, the kind, elegant gentleman about all this stuff. I mean, David used to get in there and fight and advocate for certain things, and announcers. I mean, Adam really got upset. I mean, I would have to assume that Rachel will wind up on NBA TV.
Yeah, it seems like that's, at some point, she ends up there doing interviews or something like that. Curtis and I talked about this during the finals. Brian Curtis, who does a great job writing about all this stuff for us.
He's a smart man.
They don't care about Countdown, which makes it so funny that they constantly tinker with Countdown, change it, pay giant salaries for it, and do the whole thing. But then when you watch the last two rounds of the playoffs, there's barely a show. The pregame show is like all commercials and all 4-minute segments where everybody, Curtis wrote a great piece about this. Everybody just basically takes turns speaking for 20 seconds and goes to the next person. The halftime's 2 minutes long in the finals. It's 2 minutes. Then after the game, they're immediately trying to get to SportsCenter so they can get the SportsCenter money. So I guess my question is, why even have, first of all, I mean, we can get to the jump in a second, but why even have Countdown? Now they're talking about, it's going to be Stephen A. and Wilbon and Magic. Potentially, there's all these rumors. Why would they throw more money at a show that they fundamentally don't care about?
Oh, I think you're conflating not caring about it with either the revenue stream or just incompetence. Because I would argue that they care so much about it. They paid a fortune for Sage Steele. They paid really good money for you. They paid really good money for Beetle.
My money came before they made me go on that show. I already had the contract. They just gave me a little extra. They wet my beak.
They gave you extra.
They did some beak wetting.
They were paying you what you were being paid. They could guilt shit you into going on it. I mean, I think that they cared too much about it. I mean,
they definitely did when in the early 2010s, but I don't know how anybody who cares about television, who cares about the quality of it, could watch those countdowns during the finals and be like, man, we're so close if we only have the right talent. Fundamentally, if nobody is allowed to have a conversation, how are you going to have a good show? That's the whole point. Like Turner has these 9-minute halftimes where everybody actually gets to talk and interact. You're never beating that unless you change the format of your show.
Yeah, I mean, look, they tried. I think they really are spooked by the fact that the Turner show was such a great show, and they know that they just have never been able to come close to it. I think that's a problem. But I also feel like that show was designed, the architecture of that show was designed to just be as much of a revenue generator.
You're talking about Countdown.
Yeah.
It's commercials with a couple people making random basketball points, and that's what they decide to do. And if you're going to put Stephen A. and Wilbon and Magic on that show, I've worked with two of those people on that show. Like, they don't say stuff in short sound bites. So if you're going to give them 3 minutes to try to have a segment, good luck. It's not going to happen. They'll be introducing the segment, and the segment will be over. No,
they will have to totally create a whole new paradigm for that show if that's the case.
But do you think, Curtis asked this point in his piece, if Barkley was on that show, the way it's presently constructed, where so much of it revolves around the host setting up, coming in and out of commercials, and then nobody has any time to speak, basically, would even Barkley be good on that show? I don't know if he would be that good.
No, but Barkley wouldn't do the show. That's the whole point.
Great point. Yeah.
He would just say, wait, what's the show? That's the show? Yeah, count me out. I got enough
I get
money.
to talk 15-second sound bites? Awesome. No thanks.
He would just say no, which is basically toward the end of your time there. That's basically what you were saying. You didn't want to do it anymore. I mean, it gets
I didn't want to do the second season because I would send them these long memos about here's why we have a limited ceiling with the show. It's a lot of it is to do with the structure and how you're approaching like opening segments and stuff. And they didn't care because they want everything to look like SportsCenter. So it was never going to be a good show.
Yeah. I mean, but I would be very surprised if they get those three and keep the show as is. It's almost impossible. It's almost impossible. And then, of course, they're going to have another show like The Jump. They just won't call it The Jump.
I figured that. I just thought Malika gets that show. They call it NBA Daily or whatever they call it. All the same types of people that are on The Jump, but it's way less built around the host. There's no 5-minute self-congratulatory monologue at the beginning of it and none of that stuff. And it's just like basically SportsCenter about the NBA.
Can we just channel our Bradley Cooper here with some silver linings? It's Malika really, I mean, in a story that had absolutely no good news to it, Malika was the silver lining because she not only is a show that it's a meritocracy, but she delivered time and time again under incredibly extraordinary circumstances, at various points. And she's
like 9 years older than my daughter.
I mean,
they threw her into the fire. It's incredible. I think she's like really 25. Good.
Yeah, she's really good. I mean, they lucked out big time.
Well, what do you do if you're them? Like, you're covering basketball. You have this unbelievable asset in some ways in Woj because he has all the information. But you're also like kind of, how do you make that work on TV? They've never been able to make Woj work on TV with the information. Twitter is always the best format for him. But then when you have like something like the draft and he's spoiling each pick on Twitter, and then people watching the draft are like, why am I watching this? I should just watch Twitter.
I mean, I think there's a fair analogy to be made with Schefter, and you see what Schefter does on NFL. I mean, Woj is, obviously Woj, but I think that there is a way to incorporate that kind of insight and news breaking into a show.
Yeah, you pull them into the segments,
and you have real conversations, and then you bounce off of that news. Sometimes they would come in, Woj would, say all of a sudden like this and this is going to happen, or so and so is going there, and then they'd go back to a separate conversation. I mean, it's like while you're there breaking the news, own that news, talk about the repercussions, talk about how that's going to change either the game you're about to see or something else, and and then it becomes fun. I mean, they just didn't integrate him right. But he's
I always thought he should be like in Woj's bomb shelter. And they just go to it and he's in like an actual shelter and he's just like dropping Woj bombs and then does like a 4-minute segment, a lot like the Schefter thing. Because I think Schefter works on the NFL. And they haven't been able to figure out how to make that also work for Woj.
But I don't think it's Woj's fault. I think that they just don't understand how to conduct.
I agree with you. I don't think it's Woj's fault either.
They have some, it's like they have a beautiful violinist. They just don't have a conductor. They just don't have a way of making it all sound pretty.
So as we get distance from this Rachel, Maria, this whole thing, it actually seems like people a little bit are like, wow, that was crazy how that worked out for Rachel, whether you agreed with what she said, all that stuff, just fundamentally how it played out. It seemed like the pieces that I read from all the media reporters were like, wow, that was just completely effed up by ESPN. What a disaster over the course of a year for how to handle a crisis. And I think that's going to be the legacy of this, right? It's like, how can you handle something this badly for a year?
Well, the other ironic part of it is, forget about what's in the papers. People at ESPN who, let's just say that there were some people who were not big fans of Rachel. Even they are saying she got a raw deal. And, they can't believe the whole saga. And so I think it's one of those things where now that both of them are kind of removed from the equation, it still lives and breathes. And the repercussions are going to be both on the managerial, side and just in terms of the NBA coverage side. I think it's going to be with them for a while. It is really sad. It was really screwed up.
Yeah, and like borderline traumatic. And a lot of people either lost their jobs or they're getting transitioned out. And it's led to, they brought in Dave Roberts, who was on the radio side, I guess, to run the NBA stuff. And usually when the new person comes in, they're going to bring in all their own people and kind of do their own vision for stuff. But, it's interesting watching from afar as they've screwed up a couple of these things. And look, I think ESPN's in a really hard spot in some ways because of how their business has changed the last 8-9 years. And it just feels like they're constantly playing defense and they're playing whack-a-mole with crises that come up and stuff like that compared to what it was like, which I think was like the real recent heyday of probably 2009 to 2012, stuff like that. I think what's interesting about what's happened in that company, you have all these cutbacks. You have to get rid of like your bench basically, right? So if it's like think of the whole company as like a 53-man roster. So you've had to get rid of some of that. And now you're basically trying to play football with like a 40-man roster. You're putting a lot of responsibility on certain people. And you have these moments like what just happened with this Marie Rachel thing where it's like, it's almost like they don't have enough people either in charge or focused just on how everything's going to be like, oh, wait a second. The person who's levitating above and is like, hey, wait a second, this is bad. What are we going to do? How are we going to fix this? Because they're always like playing catch up, trying to fix stuff. And to me, this is like an 8-year kind of slide. If you're thinking back to 2012, 13, where they are now. The innovations, what innovations is ESPN doing the last few years other than pulling off streaming? Like, think about what the company was like in the 1990s, all the stuff you wrote about in your book in the 2000s, constantly trying stuff. Sometimes the stuff didn't work. Sometimes it would be the phone, sometimes it would be ESPN and the Gatorade. Like, they would take swings and misses. What are the swings now? Like, basically they've retreated and they basically said, we just want to show games and highlights. And I guess that's who we are. Like, it's kind of depressing, right?
Well, listen, first of all, on the talent side, I think it's even more drastic than what you suggest. Because, look, at one point they had over 1,000 people on camera. They deals with over 1,000 people. Right now, they made a decision several years ago, and Stephen A. was the beneficiary of that beyond anybody's imagination, and more so than anybody else, that there were probably, I would say, Bill, like 10 to 12 people that they really care about.
Yeah.
Everybody else, forget about it. And in fact, if you look at this past year, what they've done with a lot of talent contracts, they've actually set out a number. They've given the number. This is the number. If you want to stay, you can accept this number